Hey there, thanks for tuning into another exciting episode of Restaurantopia. Today we've got Jason Therrien, the president of thundertech, an integrated marketing agency based out of Cleveland, Ohio, with satellite offices across the country. Jason is an absolute mastermind in the marketing world, and we were so excited to get him on and have him spend some time with us. Very grateful. Imagine a perfect world where you can build a restaurant, open the doors, and make loads of money. Unfortunately, those days are over. It takes great leadership, hard work, and long hours to operate a successful restaurant. Together, we can make it happen. This is Restaurantopia. All right. Thanks, guys, for being here. Another exciting episode of Restaurantopia. We are probably coming out of, we're not coming out of our COVID series, but, we just got another spin on it here with a great guest and a marketing expert that we're going to be talking to for the next few minutes. And the normal crews here, Brian Seitz and Anthony Hamilton. And we are happy to welcome Jason Therrien here, the president of thundertech Marketing, Cleveland-based marketing company. And I won't ruin Jason's story with trying to do it for him, but Jason, we've got to know him over the past few months, and as a premier marketing agency and marketing mind, in the area. So we wanted to get him on here and talk about what restaurants and businesses can be doing in these times to market themselves and what he may be able to offer. So Jason, we'd love to probably start off with maybe a little bit about you, your origin story, the business. Maybe just give us, give people that haven't heard of you or the business, maybe what's happening.
Good deal. Well, thank you guys for having me on. I've enjoyed our conversations offline, so now we'll see how entertaining we are now that we're taped. But so the very high level, because we're not here to talk about me, is, and actually let me tie in how a lot of this will probably transfer to your listeners. I'm a product of small business. I grew up in an entrepreneurial family, so I didn't know what child labor laws were until much later. So. It's all good, but learn to work at an early age and learn a lot about business and again pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. I started thundertech 21 years ago now, which seems incredibly distant at this point. So we've seen three big crises, and we were at different stages during each one. So Dave, as you mentioned, we're headquartered here in Cleveland. We have a satellite office in Detroit and in Chicago. We work across the country. So we get to see a lot of the regional differences that obviously we have in this country. And food and beverage has actually been a core category for us for a long time, the general space, which also obviously includes restaurants of different stripes and sizes. So some of our early clients were actually in the restaurant business, including some breweries, and it's a great category. I personally love it. I have a lot of fun with it. So, and I love, especially whether we work with them or not, what these businesses, big and small, add to our quality of life. So I have a soft spot as a business owner and entrepreneur for this category.
No, thanks for the intro. And I know you probably don't want to go too much into where you've come from, but 21 years, tell us a little bit about that journey, where you started and how you got to where you're at now, and with, it sounds like 3 different offices and in an entrepreneurial, setting with, especially, Brian always says, the restaurateur is the ultimate entrepreneur. So I think your story may resonate with some people. It'd be nice to hear a little bit more, maybe. I'm interested at least.
Yeah. So, when we were first getting started, I kind of fell into the space, and interesting how things have come full circle, where we started off in the digital space, right? In the mid to late 90s, this internet thing was popping up, and I was just raising my hand for anything to keep me out of trouble. And that happened to stick. So we were building a lot of early sites, and the traction obviously in the late 90s was slow. I mean, we had dial-up in our first office, which
Oh wow!
so
AOL.
Yeah, exactly.
1990 was 10 years ago, right?
Yeah, I think I have some CDs in my office. If you get anyone needs that,
That's
a
good.
discount code.
What a marketing case study! Just flood the mail with those CDs. And yeah, I bet half the people listening to this don't even know what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's fair.
Anyway,
It's like a record, but smaller.
A record? A what? Sorry.
my background was more general business and marketing. Again, I wasn't a guy who took apart his computer or anything. I just kind of fell into the internet and the web. And, early on, if we were going to make it as a company, we had to look at what we were delivering in kind of a wider lens. So we actually started taking on offline assignments and skills and built the business really pretty balanced. It's funny, obviously, given that it's 2020 and everything that COVID and where the world has gone today is truly taking us back into more and more digital. But it's nice because we have now this full service integrated offering under one roof. We've got just under 50 folks, and it's everything from the writers and the designers to the videographers to the actual programmers to the folks who place and create media strategy. So it's a hell lot of fun. I enjoy going to work still every day because we've got all these different personalities that somewhat stereotypically follow some of these skill sets. You've got the artists and the poets and the technical folks, and we get them to kind of play nice together. And it's been a heck of a ride. I mean, the things that we've been able to see and the businesses we've been able to grow, and we've just iteratively adapted over the years. So, like, for example, we were doing mobile website work for clients that wanted to be on the BlackBerry. So another way to date myself, the BlackBerry, they were track wheel optimized. But we had watched that, what it was probably about 12 years ago now, we'd watched it out of Asia because everyone had these PDAs in Asia that had browsers on them. Like, well, eventually it's going to come here. And then it did. And the BlackBerry picked up a very rudimentary browser. And then some companies wanted to get their field reps access. We said, okay, we're ready to take that on. So when the iPhone came along 2 years after that first project we did, we were ready for it. But yet, there were still a lot of folks kind of flat-footed because they weren't watching and reading. And none of this stuff, social media, web, mobile, none of it's happened overnight. It feels like it, but that's been our job to watch it over the years. So to have all those skill sets, again, really enables us to do that and can stay on the curve.
Yeah, and that's interesting. You bring that up because Brian and I just had a conversation yesterday because we're not, and I don't want to offend you, Brian. I'll offend myself, but I'm not a marketing person. So Jason, it's interesting you brought up that the point about looking ahead and seeing marketing and seeing things coming that looks like it just popped out of nowhere, but you actually had to research it because Brian and I were having a discussion yesterday just about marketing in general. And you see when you talk to, even though I'm not a marketing person and Brian, I don't think considers himself a marketing person, but we've learned in having conversations and knowing people like you. And even though it's not our business, like you can kind of tell who's in the game and who isn't. And I think you talk to people that are in marketing and immediately like, this guy's still thinking the BlackBerry is where it's at. You know what I mean? Like you said it like, okay, I did that. I'm done with it. They're still thinking of it. Like, they're like, the next thing they're gonna be like, they just were placing like, billboards last week, or magazine print ads, you're just like, okay, how do you stay on top? Like, is there a secret sauce or is it just as easy as just researching and looking out? Like, how do you really stay on top? Because it's changing every day, right?
Let's be honest. I think any marketer or business owner that tells you they got to figure it out, right, is either full of it, or if they haven't figured out for that second, will be sorely disappointed tomorrow, because the consumer is the most fickle creature on earth. And I think that is the type of thing where many of our decisions as consumers, we can't really even articulate. I think we try to throw logic at a lot of our buying habits, but they're really very emotionally driven typically. Yeah, it's something where you just have to study. You don't have to have a PhD in this. You just have to be curious. You have to want to talk to people. You have to want to look at your data, and you want to look at it in a fresh way tomorrow, than you did yesterday. And you try to do pattern recognition, right? And that's really what I think entrepreneurs are good at. You maybe do that in your restaurant with flavor profiles, or you're seeing that, menu item A is selling a heck of a lot better than menu item B, and you wonder why that is. And then you put a theory towards it. If you want to try to improve it, you test it. It's the absolute same thing with marketing. And that's that ground game, right? So we look at marketing, again, kind of in two different arenas, right? You have your air cover, which is your brand building. You have to be known, you have to be into the consideration set at some point. And then after air cover, right, you got your ground game. And your ground game is really your direct response. So that when you open the site and you click order, right, that's a direct response to something that caused you to either go online or walk into that store or whatever it was to finally make that order. Marketing used to put a lot of, or most of the energy into that brand building, right? We need the big ads, we need to be on the airwaves 24/7, and didn't always do the direct response. In fact, direct responses usually was looked down upon. That was an infomercial, right? Direct response, that's a way of marketing that's on at 2 a.m. when I can't sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yes and no. I mean, it's a way to make the cash register ring. And now today that's really been supplanted with.
What are some of the things you look at, and we'll put it in those two categories of direct response and your overall brand? What are some things that a restaurateur should be looking at as far as pattern recognition in the form of KPIs? What measurement tools should they look at? Because, I mean, some of our people are really well versed in a lot of the digital assets, whether it's social or their Google Analytics and their POS systems and the information they're able to glean off of that. But what are some of the things that you see, just if I had to look at, here's two things you should be looking at on a weekly basis or running a report on?
I think what we see, especially, if we're talking a smaller or maybe a mid-sized organization where you don't have a marketing department running it, right, is that consistency is usually the toughest thing. And I hate to lead with that as a KPI, but I think if you can just stay consistent, you're better than a large sum of your competition out there. It always breaks my heart as a marketer and then as a consumer to watch someone put out great content for a couple of weeks at the place I want to root for and visit perhaps, at some point, and then they disappear. And then they disappear from my mind. And then I never make it there. And then 6 months later, I see another great post because they got around to it, or they paid somebody, or somebody showed back up to do it, or whatever the story was. Sadly, but again, effectively, is just being consistent. Consistency eventually then creates a lot of other positives for restaurants. You create more visibility. Right? Visibility is absolutely key to understand that just because you put something on social, not all 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 fans of yours are going to see it. Right? Who's really seeing what you're doing? And understanding, again, what that energy or that money you're investing is, what kind of visibility is it creating? And what kind of visibility do you need to translate into eventual sales? Some of that gets fuzzy. But I can tell you what, if you haven't posted consistently, try mapping out your week over week sales against some of your content flighting, right? If you haven't posted for a month, look at the sales that month versus the month you did post. Maybe there's a difference, maybe there's not, but you've got to be able to start lining sales to this actual effort. That's why we're doing it, right? This isn't for art. Marketing is to assist in the sales of an organization. The second big thing, and I'll end on this one, is audience. Unfortunately, a lot of organizations have waited to build audience. It takes some time. You can speed it up with some money too, but it takes effort, whether it's time and or money, to build an audience. But that's everything from your social following to email. I don't think many restaurateurs do it, but there's good old-fashioned mail, there's loyalty programs. If you're big enough or need an app for whatever reason, app downloads and that kind of data. Restaurants are starting to get into the CRM game, right, through their point of sale. What do you know about your organization? And then if you've built audience, how are you treating them? What are you doing with that data, or are you just sitting on it?
I love that. I think, we talk a lot about on our episodes about community and engaging with your customer base and being able to understand who that is. What does that customer profile look like? How deeply can you dive into that, create a connection, and to direct market back to those people who have supported you, and you support them, provide them with good content, offers. We talked about it in our last episode of, giving away a slice of pizza, but if you knew that this person liked this type of pizza and you could deliver something to them, would really strike a chord with them. I think that has a much more value to the customer as opposed to just, oh, here's 10% off, or here's this, the shotgun approach of offers.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And that's sometimes a difficult thing to put a value to, again, whatever you're asking in exchange for. But for example, an email, and it varies by industry, but an email is definitely worth a lot of money these days. If somebody has opted in and wants to hear from you, you get the intimacy of that inbox. And then how long can you actually communicate one-to-one with that person? That's different than a Facebook post, right? Where you're not necessarily going to see them, and then the fleeting nature of news and media on those social platforms. It's not that those aren't valuable. It's just something like email is so hugely valuable. To be able to talk to somebody, let's say monthly for 5 years, what's that value? What's that value worth?
Yeah.
And think about it over the lifetime value of a customer. You can justify a lot more to get that person in.
I think that interaction that you have with email, I feel like I'm connected to some people that I have mailing list with, just for the sense of that constant conversation, that the continued dialogue that's going on. Jason, what do you think about the text messaging? Some people hate it. Some people love it. What do you think of that? Do you think that's a fad, or do you think that text messaging is here to stay?
There's a time and a place for it, right? Some brands are going to do better than others. I think, again, it depends on your affinity for it. How much loyalty you have with that organization. I think from a local perspective, right? If it's your corner shop, whatever you're selling, you can absolutely do that. And to be able to stay top of mind in a time-bound way, get people through the door when reservations are low, or you've got a slow night, or whatever it is, that one-to-one messaging, it's same as email, although it's even more intimate than email. So, with any of these efforts, especially text, you're going to find out with your unsubscribes. So you can look at the industry averages and say, all right, and we've actually pushed a lot of clients to say, you're not sending enough, because look how low your unsubscribe rates are. Well, either I don't have the time, or I feel like I'm invading. It's like, you're not invading if you have something of value, and it's an opt-in process.
Yeah.
And that's what we got to remind ourselves. This is okay to do, as long as there's a value exchange, right?
I had a buddy.
Well, and I love how you put that. You're like, your unsubscribe rate is too low. I was like, you hear that and you're like, well, you think that would be a good thing, but no, that makes sense, because if you're pushing it out, not that you want to annoy people or people don't subscribe, but that's a barometer of, the consistency.
Absolutely. I mean, how many forms of marketing, or really many things in life, have that kind of feedback loop? You can say, what I usually see is, oh boy, these 10 people unsubscribe, and it hurts you personally, right? Wait a second, you're sending to a list of 10,000. I think you're just fine. You're doing just fine if you only upset 10 out of 10,000, right? So yes, there's a space for text, and I think it should be in more restaurants' toolkits.
It's funny you say that. I notice a lot of times, I teach at Kent State, so I notice a lot of the kids in my classes are 19 through 22 years old. They love the text. And I find between, us here, like between Dave and Brian and myself, we generally don't like the text unless we absolutely opt in. And again, the value has to be paramount for the exchange, right? For us to even be interested in it. I find it a little bit Orwellian. I'm kind of like, get out of my life. Like you said, it's more intimate. I feel it's more invasive, right? And that's kind of how I feel. But I notice the kids, they love it. They don't mind. They don't care about geofencing. They're all about it. Like, hey, make life easier for me. Put it right on my phone. So all I got to do is click and walk in. I'm good to go. Have you noticed that in your studies as well? Or your practice, I should say?
Yeah, no, good point, Anthony. I think, you got to still understand your customer. You got to understand your audience, right? And if no one's signing up for these things, well, you probably went a step too far to assume that they want these. Yeah, I think that there is a time and a place. I really, at thundertech, we really push on clients with segmentation and not broad brushstrokes. Like nobody's audience is families. That's not an audience, right? Families with kids between A and B ages in these 5 zip codes with a household, income of between X and Y. That's an audience. That's absolutely an audience.
I love that.
You can find those folks like that today. But if you're just going to market to families within an hour drive, you're wasting a lot of money.
If everyone's your customer, no one's your customer. I think.
Did you just coin that?
No, I think
Oh, okay.
I ripped that off. Hopefully. Oh my God, this fasting. I'm going to continue to fast if I'm reading gems like that. Wow.
Guys like Confucius.
Segmenting your list is paramount. I don't think enough people spend enough time analyzing who their audience is, to your point, Jason, and really understanding who they are. They really need to, who's your ideal customer, but who are your current customers? What does that look like? What is the group that you're marketing to? And I think once you understand that, then you understand what that person wants and what that person needs, and you can reach out to them directly with messages that resonate with them, so you connect more with them and provide them, better value, better service, and better product.
I think, Brett, we talk about those profiles in terms of personas, right? It's a little buzzy of a term in my industry, but if you haven't heard that term before, I'd recommend Googling it. And there's so much good content around building personas. And what I think we really like about the usage of personas is that you can think about these as real people, that represent a segment of your audience that you want more of, and take yourself out of the equation, right? Because we're also consumers, we're also imperfect, we've got our biases, and you can look at that sales data, you can look at the communication habits, you can look at various preferences of Jim, if Jim is your persona name, or Susie, or whoever. But we literally try to name these persona types so that you talk about them at these meetings as if they are real people, so that it takes your bias out of it.
We need more gyms. Where's Sally been?
You can call them anything you want.
Yeah.
I find that being something I struggle with is my own bias, and no one's going to pay $16 for this drink, or no one's going to do this. And then people do it all day long. And you're like, well, the point of sale system doesn't lie. Like that's, people vote with their pocketbooks, and Brian, you're completely wrong. I think that's something that in marketing, you do need to set your ego and set your personal beliefs aside.
Yeah. And I will tell you too, if there's ever a time to do it, it's right now, right? Because there's especially in this constrained time when some people are choosing different habits of going out and not going out, it has nothing to do with you, right? Or what you think others should be doing. It has to do what that persona believes in. And now might be a good time to refresh, or at least revisit that. Is that customer that's coming to see you today the same one that was coming to you prior to all this? And how will that shift over the summer and fall for you?
I mean, online ordering, curbside pickup, patios, being a place of refuge versus just a part of the restaurant. Where I went to dinner last Saturday, and there was 5 tables inside the restaurant, and then a huge patio area. The customer experience and what they're doing now is different than what they did last year. And if you try to do what you did last year, you're going to lose.
You've established the importance of segmentation, which I tend to agree with. Are restaurants unique in that a lot of times their customer base or their target market is much broader across many demographics, more so than, say, like a fishing store, a ladies department store, or something like that, where maybe there's not identifiable segments? And I think what happens is the fallback habit is, I'm going to cast a wide net, right? Because I got all these demographics to cover, all these personas to cover. And then when they cast a wide net, they have big holes in their net, and obviously a lot of fish get out, right? So looking back at my days in operations, I spent almost my entire career there. And a lot of times I was attached to Facebook or whatever, doing some half-assed marketing approach that most restaurants do. We'd cast a wide net. And ideally, looking back on it, seems like I need to cast 10 or 12 different nets, right? And the problem is I don't have time, So how do we find time, or what's the easiest way to go about doing things properly? Because listen, we just post our daily specials every day at noon and 5. That's what we do. And we hope for the best, right? That's kind of the habit. That's what we have time for. As Brian would say, we work in our business instead of on our business, right? And I'm wondering what advice you would give to a restaurateur, all that considered.
Yeah, those are very real and good points to discuss. So I think you may have 10 or 12 audiences, but you may not need to market to 10 or 12 of them. Who's most on the bubble to make a decision to come or not? Or who's most valuable? Or who do you want more of? Who do you want less of? Right? Those are the questions we don't hear asked enough, because just because they show up doesn't make them an ideal customer. Again, today, I know it's a little different because you just want foot traffic through that door. Mm-hmm. But the segmentation is really, you can slice it up however it works for you. Because if you're a neighborhood, tavern, and and you pull from just a few block radius, well, that's fine, but that's a segmentation. So the age range may be all over the place, but the psychological reason, we call it the psychographics, not just the demographics, but the psychographic is probably the same. Proximity, comfort, right? Reliability, whatever those reasons are, somebody would just walk down the block or drive, a mile to see you versus going across town. So yeah, I think you can overdo this segmentation, but you just got to ask yourself those questions and really focus on what's going to give you the most fruit.
Nice, man. Thanks.
Jason, I wanted to hit a little bit on a person's web presence and what they have on the internet as far as their restaurant. It's one of my beliefs that like people don't even Google their own restaurant or food near me. Like, what is coming up when you search, for your restaurant? What are some of the things that people should do as a restaurateur, just low hanging fruit that they should do this weekend?
Like you said, look at it. It's, you all have seen these things. We were trying to celebrate the last day of school. I got two kids in school, and recently, school was let out, and we just wanted to grab some quick donuts for the morning. And there was a new donut shop down the street from us. My wife said, "I'm not sure if they're open. Look it up," right? So we looked it up. It said they were closed because of coronavirus. They shut down. And I said, I drove by them the other day. I could have swore the sign was set on. That site had said they were closed for 2 months, and no one either had told the owner or he hadn't listened to anybody, but she told him. And I was like, how many people just didn't bother picking up the phone and checking? Yeah. Most people won't. We're so close to our businesses, whatever business it is, but especially I think restaurateurs, you have a lot to do. Everyone wears a lot of hats, right? It's a very roll up your sleeves mentality in the industry. That's I love it. But you forget to back out of it sometimes and look at it more from a consumer. Right? People do use their phones, they do use Google, and they will make a snap judgments on what they find or don't find on their phone. And, right now, I can't urge this enough. You've got to update all of your listings. Most people, hours have shifted. Your policies obviously have shifted a lot. Your offerings have shifted. Your menu likely has adjusted. But yet, not only is it correct on your website, but is it correct on Facebook or anywhere else where your data lives? And that's the thing, that even if you think you've got down your website, which again, some do, many don't, there's all these other properties out there. You've got to make these updates. And I know it's a pain, but when every customer counts today, I'd hate to lose somebody because the donut shop website.
Yeah. Yeah, and if there was a Dave persona, it's going in and like you pull up the menu and it's like fall 2019, or the menu doesn't come up, or and you're just like, it makes me question what else they're missing in their operation. And maybe because I'm in the industry, maybe I'm more sensitive. I don't know if everybody would look at it that way, but I think like something simple is like having your menu online or having it correct or updated, and it's not. I'm like, well, what? I mean, are you putting the right ingredients in the stuff? Like, are you, is the servers washing their hands? Like, there's all these things go through your head. Like if you can't get a menu on your website, Like, so that's at least how I think about it. So it does make you go, man, it's the little details.
That's my number one pet peeve. My second pet peeve is they have one photo. It's from a customer that gave a 3-star review, and it was shot with that BlackBerry. Like, it's like this thing looks like it was shot from the parking lot. Like how are you letting this stay up there as the first thing that comes up?
You got it. And for a long time it was tough because you had to pay for good photography. So we put a texture over it, or you just kind of blend it into whatever the visual design was. You didn't focus on it. Now there's no excuse, right? We see everybody sees beautiful food photography out there, and most of it is not being shot by classically trained food photographers, right? You've got these phones with these incredible lenses. And if you're not willing to do it, you've got to see if someone on your staff can do it. And if you can't find that, it is worth a couple bucks to pay somebody to do it, because again, you will be judged by that.
And this is a plug too for Eat Local Ohio. I know I posted on LinkedIn this week a free service that they were providing during this time to come out to your restaurant, do a photo shoot, give you some content for your social media feeds. I think it's important now more than ever to get really, really good photos of your food. If people eat with their eyes and they want to see that food and what it looks like. And to me, when I'm going through Instagram and you know, if I'm looking at Eat Local Ohio, like I could have eaten 10 minutes before this and I'm hungry again.
That's an excellent point, Brian, that I'll hit again, because if you get it done, you get it done right? Many of those photos or images will have a shelf life too.
Mm-hmm.
They're not used once and they're done. We're big believers at thundertech in a method called COPE, C-O-P-E, create once, publish everywhere. So you can use it on the site, you can use it on the email, you can use it on Instagram, you can use it on Facebook, you can use it in that print ad, you can use it wherever, on the menu, etc. And then you can rinse and repeat as appropriate over time. But I'd much rather do that with something that looks really good and appetizing than something I took with my BlackBerry.
You know, I want to go back to audience a little bit. You know, we talked about text messaging. How would you, if a restaurateur has not started collecting their CRM database, you said, if that's how we want to put it, but their audience basically of the people coming in, like what would be your best recommendation for somebody to get started on something like that? Phone numbers, emails, like how would you capture that stuff if you're a restaurateur?
Yeah, again, I think it's understanding who that audience is, who you want more of. Is this a transient audience where you'll see them once a year? That you're going to talk to them much differently than really differently than somebody you see once a week, right? Most, I think, restaurants have that middle ground, right? The folks that they're going to see several times a year, hopefully, if not a lot more. Understand what that frequency is. Understand where they tend to hang out, right? Is this a Facebook group, an Instagram group, an email group, etc.? And instead of just making assumptions, just ask, right? It's really simple. And I think a lot of that easy data collection comes through minimally just anecdotal evidence. You don't have to get, again, depending on your size, you don't have to roll out a giant survey program, right? You just have conversations as you check in with your customers, and just don't talk to your best customers. Talk to the new people that have walked through. Folks don't want any more, noise in their life than they have, and most people feel very opinionated about this. So if you ask them, it's like, "Oh, don't do that." Okay, that's a good piece of evidence that you have then. And if 10 people you see that night tell you that, all right, you saved yourself some time and money, probably. It's not the most scientific, and I know a lot of my researchers would really have a problem with what I'm telling you, but it's a quick way, right, to start weeding out where you should be in terms of what data you're collecting in that CRM. And again, this is many industries, but especially in anything in hospitality, the call to action is not always as clear as it should be. You've got to tell people what to do, right? What exactly do you want them to do? And why, right? Why? Okay, great. You asked me to sign up for your email and you were clear about it, but where's the value for me? You need to tell me what I'm going to get out of that. Am I just going to get spam because that's where everyone's head's going to be? Or am I going to receive some specials? Am I going to receive some updates? Am I going to on and on and on? You've just got to be clear about that. It doesn't have to be fancy, but that clarity will help drive the results.
I look back again at my operational days, and some of the best luck we've ever had is face-to-face marketing in service, right? And so anytime we had a special promotion going on or a wine dinner we needed to promote, it was always Friday or Saturday nights where we just beat it on the pavement, right? Like every guest that came to the door, if they had a decent experience, it was just flood them with positive vibes about upcoming events. Do you still think there's value to that in the digital age, that face-to-face marketing, or no?
Any frontline staff, whether it's in restaurants or hotels or any type of hospitality, it's believable, right? You're in front of them anyways. And if it's done in a conversational way, and it's done in a way that you can have some fun with, even your results are that much better.
Maybe a little more engaging.
Yeah, it's not a don't be cold about it, right? Again, what's the value exchange? But it's saying, hey, by the way, we just added this little field on the comment card, on the receipts, on the whatever. And you guys want to sign up for email? I've started getting them, and there's great savings on here. You could have saved X, or you could have done X, or you could have what have you. oh, well, that's a whole different story than here, sign up for my thing. And, I promise not to say that. I put an accent on that, but yeah.
I think the direct, like the direct connection, even though the 2 minutes I spent with Anthony explaining that the way you just did the first time, not second time, but the way you explained it, like that 2 minutes, even though that takes 2 minutes and it's personal and you only get once, I'm not hitting 10,000 people, but I'm having an experience right there that's probably going to return easily. Like that's a 100% win in most times if presented properly. So you need both, really. You need, you need like more of a broad coverage, but then when you get somebody one-on-one, I think we're still got to be, there's still that human element that people want to conversate and have a direct connection. And that's what we've talked about from the first episode in this, the direct connection with that local independent operator and the customer.
I think it goes to training and how well you train up your staff to deliver that message, whether it's encouraging your staff to get one more appetizer per table per night, or it's getting them to do the mailing list. Mrs. Jones, I noticed you love the Merlot. We have a mailing list that provides a VIP club where you get 10% off bottles, or you get to take home this every once in a while, or you get entered into a drawing. Whatever that give back is, I love that, Jason, because you really need to provide value before you take something.
Yeah, Brian, it's a great way to put it. Frankly, if it's just part of the training program and it's thought of in the same way as you would with a upsell or cross sell,
mm-hmm.
and you have success with those, right? Because you're going about it in a non-aggressive manner, or whatever manner you train against that you've seen results with, it is exactly the same idea.
You had mentioned earlier about the pandemic and everything accelerating trends. How does an operator stay on top of that? They move so damn fast anyway. And I think we have an idea of, you see the trends, you try to emulate them the best you can, but if you're not agile enough, you missed the wave already, right? And so now we have this accelerant in place, and we have trends and trends and trends coming through. And as you talked, maybe off recording or maybe before the show a little bit, you talked about just throwing gas on the fire, and that's what it's like. And it's funny because I was reading an article today just about that exact same thing. How possibly can an operator stay on top of all this? And you said reading. Is that enough? I mean,
well, listen to this podcast, right? It'll be fine.
Oh,
done and done.
I mean, the best thing, you can listen to it
Perfect.
twice. I mean, you can listen to it multiple times.
It like many other things is habit, in my opinion, right? That you don't have to read everything that somebody in a marketing agency reads, but who do you follow on Twitter? Who are you listening to on, from a podcast perspective? What are your own personal habits? So if you're used to Googling yourself and your GM's name and your restaurant's name once a week or a couple times a month, you'll pick up things, right? It's a couple of weeks ago when Google changed or added the curbside pickup badge and some of those classifications, right? We talked to a lot of folks in the community. They didn't even have their listing up there, let alone understand about these badges. And there's no programming. This isn't a website build. You just have to have an account and you have to fill out some fields. If you can type, right, you can do this. Like, you got to start there, and then you got to build in the habit to look at it once in a while and make sure it's correct. Which strikes me because many restaurateurs and GMs and regional folk, they're all over bad reviews. They know when those come through.
Mm-hmm.
So why wouldn't you do that with your basic data that's out there too, right? It's just, how do you train yourself to form a habit around that?
It's pretty profound, man.
No,
so true. Yeah.
I mean, how many covers are you missing because the phone number's wrong or the link is bad? I see the link being bad all the time. Like that, please click on your link for your website if on Google. Like if it goes somewhere else or it says 404, like you need to fix that.
Immediately, right? That is, when we talk digital, and again, bear with me, this is an adjacent or group or industry, but when we talk to convention visitor bureaus, destination management organizations, marketing organizations, one of their biggest gripes is that we can pull all this digital traffic in, we can brand and market a specific region or area, But that convention goer, that business traveler, that, couple taking a leisure trip is still going to pull out their phone at the end of the day. And when they try to order pizza and the number's wrong, sales lost.
Mm-hmm.
And they end up then with a different experience, or they end up in a chain or wherever, but it's a missed sale.
Well, a lot of it, I think, in the restaurant industry, like, and I don't want this to be negative on the restaurant industry because it's an amazing industry, but it seems that they have adapted slowly to a lot of this digital social media. And there's some that are way above and beyond and doing great jobs, but then there's others like, websites. And, it used to be like, having a Facebook page, having an Instagram page, like, and then to you talk about consistency, like just have an account, like have a presence, have your menu up there. Like, so, especially in the locally owned restaurant landscape, I guess you don't know what you don't know, or they don't know what they don't know. Like, so how, what's the best way to get a message across to somebody that maybe, I feel like sometimes you almost got to shock people. Like, do people understand, I don't know, do people get, like, you don't know the sale you didn't get?
That's true.
So we could talk all day long about, like, well, you missed your donut order, but did the guy know he missed it? So he's just going along with life thinking, it's kind of a slow day,
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's unfortunate about that.
Yeah. So hopefully the donuts were good.
They were. They're very
okay, good. Yeah. But I guess, like, so I guess if anybody can get anything out of this, if they're listening, do some of these simple things. Google the restaurant. Look at what comes up. When you click on the links, make sure it all works. Like basic detail stuff that if you haven't done that, like you got to do that now and make sure it all works right. Like, because you may not have thought of it before. I mean, I could see easily a restaurateur that just has not even put 1 second of thought into any of this. It only takes one time for somebody not to show up, and you're not going to feel that at that one time, but over time you're going to feel them.
Yeah, I think this is besides a industry issue, it's also maybe more of a regional Midwestern issue. So we don't see these problems as much on the coast when we work out, especially on the West Coast. We've got very humble, for the most part, entrepreneurial type of, in this industry, restaurateurs, right? Salt of the earth, nose of the grindstone, and let their product and the brand kind of speak for themselves. And they're just, it's not in their DNA to wave the flag. And the world has changed. And I think that, when you have something of value, you have a good story to tell, because you've done all those things that make you who you are, you deserve to wave the flag, right? You deserve to tell people who you are. And I know it's sometimes very uncomfortable for owners or chefs or whoever that sometimes can be the face of an organization to get out there, but it's worth it, because you will build more audience that way too. It's something you can dip your toe into, but again, if you try to be out there consistently, you can really build your following a heck of a lot more efficiently.
Jason, I got a question. Another one of my pet peeves is I go on, I search takeout near me. I see something looks good. I click on the website link, and the website link takes me to Facebook and their page on Facebook. What is your position between having your own website with your own domain name that you own, or building your house on a rented piece of property?
What we say. There's nothing wrong with, building that following out on these channels, but you have to know it is not your land. It is somebody else's land, and you are building that following ultimately more for them than yourself. And even if it feels good at first, right, which most networks, they go through ebbs and flows, you don't own that data at the end of the day. That's why the CRM, the text, the email, more you can build around your customer profile, you own that, versus Mr. Zuckerberg or anyone else out there owning that data. It's not an either or, but we definitely, you should have your own property, have your own website, should have your own domain. If you find it better to put more effort into Facebook, fine. There are some brands that can maybe make that case, but I wouldn't do that at the expense of forgetting about your own properties.
I think having multiple outlets most importantly, you got to have a good website with a good viewable menu that's responsive and can be viewed on a phone. But that content can easily be published on Facebook, Instagram, and all the other social networks that your audience is on. But I don't get the view of, trying to like just do one thing, not even well. If you're just on Facebook, I think you're missing out on a lot of people, and you're missing out on a lot of business.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of a catch. So I want to be very honest about it, is that we believe much of that, but at the same time, not everyone has that time, and not every buyer profile is into all of those networks, right? So don't spend time on developing your TikTok audience if you to 65 and older, right? It just I know there's some, statistically speaking, on TikTok that are in that age bracket, but not as much as a younger profile.
Yeah,
Brian's on there.
Yeah,
he's at 65.
I'm sorry.
Wipe off your camera a little bit. I think it might be a little fuzzy here.
Right, I need to clean it off. So, but when you use that COPE method, to your point, right, is that you can think about, this is a good photo or this is a good announcement. Mm-hmm. I'm going to tweak it per channel, but the meat of it is done, right? I just now need to kind of tweak around the edges and also do not post at the same time across all these channels, right? Space them out. Mm-hmm. But we all live, it's buzzy term of being an omni-channel, right? We all live with all these different channels in our lives, and that includes offline. And it takes a consumer still many, many touches, right? That's going back to that direct response discussion, many touches before they convert. I saw the email you sent yesterday, and later, today I'll see the tweet, and that seems really good, but I didn't have the time or whatever the case was. But tomorrow I see the Facebook ad. And I finally decide to investigate or make that reservation or order that wine or what have you. And so there's a space to again, be consistent and work across different channels.
So this COPE method seems like it kind of ties into your content studio mantra that you had in your promotional materials that we received. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Because I think that to me was, as a restaurateur, one way to get my whole crew involved. If I have somewhere for everybody to dump content, and then I can kind of pick and choose which of their content I'm going to circulate. Is that kind of the idea? Or again, do you think it's beneficial for restaurateurs? Because I looked at it and said, oh my God, like I should have done this. This is amazing.
Yeah, so thank you for bringing that up. So
sure.
The idea of a content studio, I'll just back up and define it, right, is there's a couple of ideas around it, but the baseline is that this is a place studio, right? But it is a place to put assets. In this case, mostly visual assets. It's a place to put your planning documents, right? So if you've got an editorial calendar, you just know who's publishing, what, when, and maybe why. You can schedule these things out. But if you have multiple people helping, right, there's a centralized place, and there's no excuse anymore with the cloud, right? You can put this stuff on Google Drives or much more sophisticated means too. And there's a lot of software that you can subscribe to with different bells and whistles, but there are free tools too, like a Google Cloud products. You can allow multiple people to collaborate and to assist. And it's the idea of saying, all right, take that great photo, and because of our scheduling, right, we know that we need not just one, but we need several shots of it. We need several angles of it. And we also know that it's coming back 3 months later. It'll be on the calendar, but we're not going to use the asset, but it's going to be there when we're ready for it next time. So it's just an idea of thinking more of like a publisher and finding economy of scale. So it's, a content studio is just a good way to start thinking about how you publish to make your lives easier, frankly.
Yeah, I took away from it the Colab feature because I have a staff out there that are all younger than me, and they all have amazing fonts, and they all have really good photogenic sensibilities. So I want their materials, but I don't know if I trust them posting on my behalf. So I look at it as this ultimate filtration system, and maybe I add some sort of competitive element to it where I give, at the end of the month, whoever gets the most shared posts or whatever, like, I could reward them somehow. Where everybody could dump all their files and everything on the cloud, then I could take a look at them and then precipitate what I want, right? So I could filtrate. I just thought it was brilliant. And again, it's one of those things looking back, I wish I would have done, because it hit me like a ton of bricks today.
Good. Well, and that's what this is for, right? You keep educating and workflow, that we just call it workflow, right? That you understand who's producing the content, who's publishing, who's editing, who's looking at the data. And sometimes that's all one person. Sometimes that's a few people, but when you have that spelled out, it's amazing, like anything else in operations, how much easier it'll run.
Yeah, true story.
So Jason, if somebody, let me paint a picture of a potential restaurant. So we've got a, mid-scale restaurant, maybe bar and grill plus, bar and grill food, but done really well. They got to have a patio, dining. They've been doing the carry out. They didn't close. They opened up their dining room. They've never really spent money on marketing per se. They don't have a marketing budget per se, but they know, or they're inspired by maybe what we're talking about, or just in general, they're saying, I got to get my marketing going. I want to put some money towards something. For somebody just starting out and wanting to kind of get the best bang for their buck, like, is it Facebook ads? Is it promoting Instagram? Is it LinkedIn? Is it, or is it doing flyers? Like, what would you suggest somebody that wants to kind of start spending some money, to see how things go? Like, where should they start? Does that make sense? Like, what would you direct somebody?
It's a loaded question.
Sure. I understand. That's why I tried to paint a picture of maybe, I guess I didn't give you demographics. I didn't give you area. Like, I know, yeah, it's tough, but.
Know your audience, right? If you understand their media habits, whether formally or informally, you'll understand where to put some of those very precious dollars. The beautiful thing, especially about, the vast majority we've talked about today is digital. The beautiful thing is you can start small, right? And you can ramp up. It's not like buying, a billboard or a 30-second spot on TV and just hoping that was the answer.
Right.
We can go in with the kind of starter set on email or CRM, whatever the structure is to get messaging out, like text messaging tools. You can get to your Facebook or your other accounts up to snuff and start testing it, right? If you have let's go hit social for a second. If you have a social handle that's a ghost town, that's not the place to spend the money today, right? A lot of people are saying, well, I got to be on Instagram. Well, that's fine, but who are you going to talk to? And do you have a body of content already there? Whether you started a long time ago or recently, no one wants to go and see your single post. Don't spend money to send them to your single post or your 5 posts.
Yeah.
Just because, again, Instagram might be a little more popular than Facebook doesn't mean that that's a bad investment if your audience is there already. But we very much are in a test and learn kind of environment. And, you cannot set and forget anything today in marketing.
So the advice, I guess, what I would take from that is just do something, try something, start small, test things out. Like, okay. That makes sense. I mean, I think that's actionable. Like you just, I did paint you into a tough box there, but but
do it in a way you can measure it too, right? And we call these vanity metrics. Don't look at your likes, even your follows, right? Those aren't. What did it do to push traffic and sales into your shop? That is a tougher proposition. I understand, right? But you can tie these things to a trackable link. Right? If it's a reservation link to a to-go or takeout link, and maybe it's even simpler than that. Maybe it's just how many downloads of the menu or views of this new thing that we want to promote happened, versus likes or shares are good. They amplify. But that doesn't mean it's going to result in a sale.
I think a restaurateur should meet with someone like you, Jason, and really have a strategy put in place, because if you're really good at making a cheeseburger or really good at making whatever your specialty is,
Quick, Anthony, give them food. Give them a food item so they can make real quick. Give them a good one.
Foie gras, steered foie gras, cardamom brioche, and basil sorbet, buddy.
I just made that last night. How did you know? I just made that last night.
Too. My 4-year-old tried it for the first time.
I think they should meet with someone like you, Jason, to really put together a strategy. And again, it doesn't have to be, this is a $300,000 campaign that we're going to put out for the next 20 years. These are the steps that you need to take. Paying a marketing expert like yourself some money up front, investing in that, and then doing the push-ups, doing the work, pulling the weeds, do some of the work on your own over the next year or however you do the campaign. I think that's really important.
Find a Sherpa, right? If you're not comfortable with this, find
someone to carry your gear.
With you. Yeah. Carry the water, whatever the analogy is, right? And I will tell you, we got a great community here in Northeast Ohio, especially and frankly in the Midwest in general, where a lot of agencies, small and large, will take the time to talk to you. Whether they're fit to do their work or not, you'll find out, but many care about where they're located and love what they do. Just like, I hope I'm portraying today, will gladly give you feedback, right? Because they're going to have very specific questions versus, today we covered a lot of broad things, but you got to reach out, right? That restaurateur's got to reach out and start the conversation, because many of them just don't know where to start, and that's okay, but they got to start with reaching out.
I was just going to expound upon that. I think that from the restaurateur standpoint, like they're really good. They're in this for the hospitality. That's why they got in the business, because they love to serve people. They love to create. They love all those things. And when somebody's sitting in their establishment, they know exactly what to do.
Yeah.
But when the person's not in their establishment, like how do they bring that in? So I think if we can inspire anybody to have more of a marketing mindset on how do I bring more people into my establishment so I can do what I love to do. I love what you just said, Jason, and not that you don't want to waste people's time, but spend some time with marketing people, reach out to people, and create relationships. And like Brian said, you don't have to have this, 6-figure marketing budget to make this work. There's some of it you can do through your own sweat equity. And then some of it you might say, this is out of my league and I want to go to the next level and it's worth X percentage, off my P&L to make it happen, because most local restaurateurs do not even have a marketing budget. You know what I mean? And we talked about this, I think, when we first met, Jason. They don't even have a number, So when you're it'll cost $5, they're like, what? They're like,
you should have a marketing budget. Your cousin or your niece is not a marketing person. They're just young and they have social media. That does not make them an expert. So I wouldn't put all my eggs in that basket. Go talk to an agency. Go talk to Jason. These are the types of actions that you want to take that I think if you want to step up your game, and you're going to throw some money at it, but it's an investment. It's got to come off that P&L, and it's you got to be able to identify it and really target those dollars.
And learn from it. It's not all going to win. Some of it is just going to be some of it you're paying to learn the lesson.
Even, from marketing professionals, I think a big opportunity for anybody out there is to follow us, right? Passively learn. If you're not quite ready this second, myself and many others are out there posting content. thundertech really believes in education. So great, you can do that and figure it out on your own. God bless you. We're going to have a better community because of it. But minimally, you're going to be able to see, watch, learn, maybe try on your own, or maybe just feel that, hey, we know what we're talking about now. We'll be good to call you. But yeah, it's a great way to test drive places without, making a huge leap.
Well, I think sometimes there's trepidation from the person going out because they don't know marketing, and then they feel like, okay, I'm going to take a meeting with Jason, and then am I just going to hear what I want to hear, and he's going to take my money, and then I don't know, am I going to actually get the sales? I think there's some of that feeling for somebody that's that has limited knowledge and doesn't have the budget, because they're like, okay, now I got to create a budget. I got to go out and find somebody I trust. You know what I mean? I gotta, so it's a lot to overcome, but I agree with you, that passive learning and figuring it out and having some base knowledge and being a student, I think will help that process. Cause then you'll get to a point where you'll want the expert because you'll know enough to know you need it.
Like anything in business, look for the referrals, look for longevity, right? Somebody just started yesterday. It's going to be more of a risk. Doesn't mean they'll be good or bad. It might be more of a risk that, Brian mentioned the cousin's uncle's step-nephew or what have you. There's plenty of them out there. Unfortunately, I will tell you, and it's not just in restaurant and food and bev, every industry, we do way too much cleanup. It pains me still to go in and clean up. It's a steady source of business, sadly, but it pains me. I think it'd be much better to talk to professionals like yourselves, get referrals, reach out to me, reach out to anybody you trust in your circles, take a little extra time. And, it doesn't mean, like Dave said, everything's going to be a home run, but you won't have as many strikeouts.
Excellent. No, Jason, thank you so much, man. We really appreciate you being on here. And this was some great,
Yeah,
I know we covered a lot of broad topics, like you said, but if anybody wants to have a more in-depth conversation about their situation with you, like what's the best way to reach out to you?
You can obviously visit thundertech.com. You can see all the education there. We have a lot of education. We created actually a COVID library, because consumer behavior is changing. All that's free, right? So you can go to thundertech.com and we try to practice what we preach there. We've got podcasts. We've got this magazine Anthony mentioned. We've got almost 1,200 blogs now running. I mean, we
Wow.
put a lot into our content because we believe in education. You can follow us at, on Twitter at thundertech. You can find us on Facebook, everything else. And certainly you can also find me through a lot of those channels too.
Awesome. Well, Jason Therrien, thanks so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Jason, awesome. It's been a pleasure, man. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure meeting you.
No,
I wish we had about 3 days.
What you guys are doing, we're always happy to chat and share good content with good people. So thank you.
Love it, man.
Yeah, thanks. And I really think hopefully somebody heard this and got motivated to change and become a student. And I think that'd be a huge win. So thanks so much, man.
Yeah.
This is a high quality pod.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care. Adios.
Thank you for listening to Restaurantopia. The gratitude that we have for each and every one of you spending your precious time to listen to this podcast is immeasurable. Please make sure to tell a friend about this podcast. And also, if you have any feedback for us, visit us on restaurantopia.com and drop us a line. You can also subscribe on your favorite place to listen to podcasts. Thank you and have a great day.
Turn that off.
Good-
I'll
good
start
thing we
over.
could
Listen,
editing on this.
it's absolute professional here. Hold on.
I mean, are you in the studio? This is how you act in the lab? Oh my God.
You just got scolded.
Well,
think
he is
Brian's
angry.
showing up.
He is angry.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, this is,
Have you
probably the
embarrassed me
bad
in front of
time
my
bad time to start a cleanse.
I forgot he's grouchy. I forgot. Shit.
Oh yeah, Mr. Grouch. Brian, I think your mic's shot. Just by the way. Oh yeah, you've been out for
I've been
out for a little
praying
bit.
for this. I've been praying for this.
Yeah, you're done, dude. I can hear you in the office I can hear you through the wall. I can't hear you on the mic.
I can hear him through the wall through your mic. That's it. Just knock 3 times if you say yes.
Yeah, great way to finish it. I love it. I love it.
Finish is strong, man. Finish is strong. Yeah.
And Brian's out. Oh, I love it. It's unbelievable. It's amazing. So
A
all right,
warrior
Jason,
without words. That's outstanding. He's like trapped. He's gonna come over to your office in a second. I guarantee it.
So I'm in a glass box of emotion.